Well, hello and welcome along to another edition of the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and a few of the regulars. I'm joined again by Dawn, Parry, and also Anthony Churchill. How are you both?
Hello, I'm very good, thank you. Anthony, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Hello.
What I love about this is like an edition of Celebrity Squares. I don't know if you see it. I've got sort of
gosh,
Dawn
yeah.
over here, and I've got Anthony down here, and it looks wonderful.
Now I've got Anthony up there, and I've got me up there, and you're down there.
Yeah, same here. You're down there. Hello.
Where I
Oh,
belong, in the gutter, I know. It's going to be good. We have been on an extraordinary journey with you. We launched your latest book here on the Andrew Eborn Show. We heard about your extraordinary journey when at the age of 38, you came out as gay, you were married, and we talked about that extraordinary thing. But every time we meet you, there's another revelation. You're like an onion, Anthony. It's going to be good. Dawn was telling me. Tell me about this bit, Dawn.
Yes, right. Well, as I said, I first came across Anthony many, many years ago. Anyway, and then not that long ago, just a few years ago, came across Anthony again at one of my own dinner parties when I had said to a very good friend of mine whom I've been working on doing some film work with, Martin, who's Anthony's partner. I said, yes, bring your partner along, not realizing firstly it would be Anthony himself. And then when Anthony arrived, he immediately sort of kind of froze, but smiled at the same time. And I was having this quite large dinner party. I think there were about 12 of us for dinner. Was that right, Anthony? Something like that. Yeah. There were about 12 of us for dinner. So I'd cooked this great big feast, and everybody is kind of walking along. And as I'm walking into my dining room, Anthony suddenly kind of freezes and he says, "Good Lord, why is that woman? I know that woman behind me." There was a woman behind me that he knew. And funnily enough, before my mother died, my mother had had a reading by a lovely man. She never told me his name. She just said it was the most remarkable reading ever, that her husband who had died, who's my stepfather, had come through to her and she missed him dreadfully and all this sort of stuff. And the person that Anthony told me he could see was my mother. And eventually, when we put everything two and two together, and it turned out that Anthony was the person that my mother had been referring to, and I had no idea they'd ever met or known each other, when she'd had this fantastic reading that was more accurate and better than she'd ever known in her whole life. And he was the individual who turned up, and he saw my mother behind me and said, "What is she doing here?" And I said, "Who?" And he explained, and I said, "That's my mother." And then we saw photographs together, shared some photos together in my home, and that was that. It's quite amazing.
So Anthony, so your Dawn's mother was one of your clients, is that right?
She was, yes. Yeah.
Did you not know when you came round to Dawn's house that that Dawn was her daughter?
No, not at all.
Not the foggiest.
So tell me about, as I say, you are like an onion with many, many layers, and every time we find out something extraordinary. When did you discover that you felt that you had these new powers, the psychic powers? When did that happen?
Well, talk about getting everything at once. When I was 38, a lot of stuff happened.
Came out as gay. You had a horrible incident where you were involved with an attack. We didn't go into the details of the attack because
that's right. Was, so that kind of brought on a lot of stuff. So I was in London. Like I said, I was working in London. I was going through a pretty bad time because I was finding out who I was, and there was a lot of stuff happening. And then you get the feelings of guilt and all this kind of thing. So one day I and I don't work for Health Fraser anymore, so I can say this. I rang in sick, but I wasn't sick. And I went up onto Primrose Hill. And if anybody knows Primrose Hill in London, it's a beautiful spot. It's a hill and there's some trees and little trees and a bench. And it was around twilight on an October afternoon. And like I said, I wasn't in a good place. And I sat on this bench looking over London as the lights started to come on over London. And that is the most magical part of London, when the lights start to come on. But then it started to rain a little bit. So I got up, walked down the hill, got to Camden. And if anybody knows Camden, there's a market called Camden Market. And it started to rain heavily. So I got under a canopy and I leant against what I thought was the wall, and it was a door, and I fell through the door, literally like from a comedy show. I leant against the wall, the wall opened, I fell in, and I ended up on the floor. And this woman looked over her desk thing and she said, "Hello, I've been expecting you." And I got up, and I was basically, it was a psychic. So I was in a psychic's office in Camden, clairvoyant, a medium, whatever you want to call them. And she'd been expecting me. So I got up and she gave me a reading with tarot cards. And it kind of lasted about an hour and a half. She kept talking and talking. And she said, I didn't believe any of it, to be honest, at the time. Very, very skeptical. And she said, "I've got a gentleman with me, but I can't get in touch with him because he's too high up. He's not listening. He's not, looking." And I'm looking up in the sky, looking for this gentleman. He's not there. And I said, "If you can see him, describe him." So she described him, and it was my father to a T, to the red tie, the fawn jacket, everything he had on, the shape of his face, the glasses. And she said, "I've got you. So it's your father," she said, "but he won't connect. We can't connect, but I'm sure he'll find you." Well, that was the end of the reading. So I said, "Thank you very much." She gave me a lot of information. A lot of that has come to the foreground. And she also said that I would be doing what she's doing too, but I would be doing it on a bigger scale in countries like the USA and Australia and places like that. So,
Anthony,
yeah.
tell us about that, in fact, because I know that you are flown out to see specific stars. Now, if you can hint to us any of the names of any of them, please do. But of course, I understand if you can't. But it would be really great if you can tell the story of how that happened, how you ended up being the clairvoyant to the stars.
Well, again, as part of the journey. A little later on, so I started doing readings about 4 or 5 years after I met this lady. So everything she said was true, but it took me 4 or 5 years after to pluck up the courage, because all she said was, "When you're ready, just put your hand up and they'll come to you." And I went, "Okay." So I was ready. 4 or 5 years later, I put my hand up, and sure enough, it started to happen. I started to see things that the person in the room couldn't see at the same time. So eventually, I started doing readings, and I wasn't using tarot cards to begin with. I wasn't using cards. I was just seeing, and that led to reading a student in Coventry, which then led to reading her French friend in Paris, which then went to reading an American lady who was an opera singer in Paris and who lived in America, who then took me to America to meet her friends in LA. And then from LA, I went to New York. And so New York and LA are two places I go back and forth, obviously not for the last year and a half, but never mind. So that's how I got to the States originally. And then, so through this lovely performer, who I can't say her name, Alison England, funny enough, amazing Broadway actress, been in Wicked and all those kind of things. She's an amazing person. She was the one who introduced me to the States. And then from the States, when I got there, it just all opened up because I joined something called Brits in LA. Now, Brits in LA is a an association of people who meet and they do lots of things together, and primarily they are British people.
Like expats get together in other countries.
Yeah, and they have a breakfast meeting every week. And I went over for 2 months to LA after being in Australia for month and a half. So I did a big trip. So Australia was amazing, met loads and loads of lovely people over there. But when I landed in LA, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have any connections. Ali had moved to New York, so she wasn't in LA anymore. And I booked myself into a hostel for 2 nights. But remember, I was there for a long time, so I had to go and find somewhere to rent. I had a bit of a kip, and then I got out the hostel and I went, okay, guys, which way do I go? Do I go that way, which is very expensive, or do I go that way to Venice Beach, which is very cheap? And they took me to the expensive side. So
of course,
I got to what's called Montana Avenue, which is it's a beautiful avenue. It's very, it's just beautiful.
I know it well. My mother used to live in Marina del Rey in LA.
Oh my gosh,
fabulous. Yes. Absolutely fabulous. Not far from Venice Beach, of course, or Muscle Beach.
Venice Beach is very upmarket these days. They've really kind of cleaned it up a lot. So I ended up renting a property in Montana Avenue, Montana and 3rd. And it was so cheap. I mean, they were really shining down on me that day. So I rented this property, came out. It's very easy. I went in, signed a deed, done. I rented this property, came out, said, right, where do I go now? Walked down to the beach and ended up walking from Montana Avenue, which is a long way from Venice Beach, all the way down to Venice Beach. Didn't like Venice Beach, came off and walked up an avenue called Abbot Kinney. And Abbot Kinney it was like Clifton in Bristol. It's so posh in the middle of Venice Beach. And I went into a coffee shop and this woman walked in with long fuzzy hair. She looked like the female version of Gandalf the Grey. And she walked in and she kind of glided over to me and said, could she sit down? And I went, yes, of course she can. She sat down next to me and then said, you need to go to Brits in LA on a Tuesday. You'll meet everybody you need to meet. And she was right. Now, her name was Frankie Lee Slater, and she does a thing called Circles United. And she doesn't live anywhere, and she's like a nomad. She just travels around America living with people. And when she leaves, their life changes. And so she's uniting people. She's an amazing person. And she united me with the people in America. So from Brits in LA, my reputation then sort of got out like dropping a stone into a puddle, ripples out. And I ended up reading people in the industry. And I can't say names, but yeah.
Did you ever have to advertise?
No, I've never advertised.
And you've still never advertised?
Well, only on Facebook. I go, readings available, whatever. But I've never advertised.
Readings available, whatever. Is that what you say? Is that your advertising?
No. Yeah.
Readings
whatever.
Available, whatever.
Whatever. I'm very relaxed about the whole thing. And because things happen anyway. If you relax, so the first thing is find out who you are. So, we've done that bit. I found out who I was. Then get used to who you are. And then the art of manifestation is when you put something out to the universe and you believe it in here, it comes to you. But you've got to be patient because it will come when the time is right. So you've got to learn to go, this is what I like. This is what I would, love to do. And I actually did. In Australia, I stood on a stage on the south bank of Brisbane. In Brisbane, they have like a south bank, and there was an open air arena, and I stood on the stage and I said, one day I'm going to fill this arena, but I've got to go slowly and I need to meet the right people, and I'd love to read, at the time I said celebrities, And the next thing I know, I'm in LA and I'm meeting these people. And over the course of 4 or 5 years, my clientele grew. And so I read anybody from a housewife to a superstar. And I don't advertise, they come to me. So I don't go out and find them. And at one point I did think, oh my God, I've made it, because I'd read this person. And the ego side of me got in, and that's really careful. You've got to watch the ego. When the ego comes in, it's not about what you do anymore. It's about being famous, being noticed. And at the time, there was a psychic in America that was doing the rounds called the Long Island Psychic. And she had these long fingernails, and she was renowned on, you know, the television as being the Long Island Psychic. And I wanted to be her. So I got to reading these celebrities, and then one day I read one particular one with a group of friends around the pool, and I thought I'd made it. Honestly, I walked in, I got off the bus in Malibu, and I was picked up from the bus stop, taken to this house, and I thought I'd walked into a set of Dynasty. It was just beautiful, and I thought I'd made it. And then the day went really well, and I was so chuffed. I was so like, yeah. Got back onto the bus, got off the bus in Santa Monica, and as I was walking back to the apartment I was renting, this wasn't the first time, but a little while after, I just tripped, landed on my chin, 14 stitches later, and, you know, blood everywhere. There was nothing on the floor to trip me up. It was just, ooh, what's all this? And now I realize, so 4 years later, I realized that it was telling me to get off my high horse. I'm not famous. Come back down to earth. You're doing a job. It's you know, you needed to do this job. It's not about you. It's about what you do, you know, what you give to people when you're doing this. A reading isn't about, I've realized now on my journey, at the beginning it was about contacting past loved ones and making sure they're all right. And a lot of people's questions would be, how's Granny? Is she okay? And of course she's okay. She's gone over to the most wonderful place. So of course she's okay. Nowadays, the readings are more about, how do you feel as a person? What's your blocks? And I'm answering the client as to say, what are your blocks? What do you need to do to move on? Now, it might be Granny giving that information to them, or it might be any form of energy, because I've realized it's an energy form. That's what I connect with.
So
energy.
Just to deal with that then, Anthony, I mean, you obviously, the accident when you fell over on your face, you obviously didn't foresee that coming. Is it about seeing the past and advice for the present, or can you see the future?
Okay, so it's a bit of everything. So the past plays part in the today and also the future. So what I connect with is an energy form of the past and the future. The past, the present, and the future. So how I explain it to my clients is, when we are born, we're born of our mum and our dad's DNA. That's why people say, oh, don't you look like your dad? Or, you know, you sound like your mother, or whatever. You've got a lot of mum and dad in this shell, this body we carry. But we also got our own characteristics, because that's how we as humans evolve. But we've got a lot of DNA. But inside of us, we have a soul. We all know that. And funny enough, last January, it was scientifically proved that the soul leaves the body when we die. But we've known that for a long time. But
can I interrupt there? Exactly the same point. So how was that scientifically proved? Please explain that. Don't move on from that bit yet.
I know it was in the Telegraph, and I don't read.
Oh, then it must be true.
But it must be true. And they had a picture of a dead person, and with ultraviolet rays or whatever light, you know, technology they have, they show the energy force from this body, And within the energy force around the body, the kind of the lights or the colors they show, there was this from the soul, this energy light just going up.
Shooting out.
And so there's something called the Schumann factor, or the Schumann resonance, that registers the energy of the earth, because the earth is a vibrational energy, and so are we. And so when our soul leaves the body, it goes somewhere, but it doesn't disappear, it goes out there somewhere. So
can I add something to this? Because, you know, a lot of people are quite they don't believe in any of this, and the way that I would explain something like this, and I'm sure, Anthony, you might agree or you might not, I don't know, but you know, when you walk into a room and you can, and not a word is said, but you can feel an atmosphere, you can really feel, you know, either something very positive or something very negative, or fury or whatever. You can feel that energy vibrate around the room without anybody having to say a word. And that's why I think it is very difficult to negate the amount of energy that somebody leaves or puts somewhere when their body's gone, because it's still there.
Yeah. So I agree. When you go into because everything has an energy. So when you go somewhere and you pick up that energy, or somebody's come to visit and they're very negative, they might leave their negativity behind and go away feeling very happy. I mean, that's what a lot of the readings I do. People come with not a problem, but there's a reason they come to you. They want to find out something. They might leave that energy behind, and then we just clear it away. I mean, there's so much. Sorry.
An example of the sort of questions that you may be asked, because there must be things that come up all the time. So, and we've had a number of psychics on the program, and I like to clarify what powers that they claim to have and what they can do. Other people say they can't predict the future, because, and some will say that all you know about is when you're going to be born and when you're going to die. Those are the two certainties. Is that what you believe?
There's a lot we don't know, and I think everybody has the ability to see their past and their present and their future. We have the ability, but we're not all woken up. We're not all there. And some psychics work very differently. Right. So some use cards to help them. Some use energy work. Some use crystals. Yeah. Everybody has a different way of. But I do believe that we can see into the future.
Oh, okay, no, that's the interesting point, because we had a psychic on beforehand, another one of Dawn's friends, Bernie O'Reilly, who says it's not so much about the future. It's all about, this is where you are. There's many different paths that you can follow. There's only two certainties. You believe we can see the future. So when clients come to you, there must be typical questions that they ask you. And some of your clients may be very happy for you to say, use my name, because they're very proud of the fact that you can help them in certain ways. So if there are names and particular things without necessarily revealing confidential information, what are the typical questions that you ask, and how do you approach those?
Well, that's interesting, because at the beginning of my journey, the most typical question I was asked was, when am I going to meet the right man? That's what I had. So many, mostly women, so many women coming for readings. And the only thing they wanted to know was, when am I going to meet Mr. Right? And I got really, I didn't tell them this, but I was getting really fed up with the same thing. You know, this is what they wanted to know, because they don't tell me. So I pick it up and I go, oh God, here's another one. When am I going to find Mr. Right? And one funny story, and I've got to say this, and I won't mention the lady's name, but I had one client who came every 3 months for a year. It was like, I'm going to tell you exactly the same thing. Are you sure you want me to tune in again? And yeah, I'm only doing this to save you. But she said, no. I kept telling her the same thing. And then the last time I saw her for a reading, I said, is that okay? And she went, yeah, but you just told me the same thing. I've just got to be patient. He's coming. And I said, oh, for goodness sake, you're going to meet a tall blonde Australian with blue eyes. Take it. And she went, that's not my type. That's not going to work. That's not my type. Anyway, 7 months later, I bump into this lady in London, actually. And she said, Anthony, I lost your details. I couldn't tell you, but you know what you gave me at my last reading? And I knew what she was going to say. She said, I've met this wonderful man. He's Australian. He's blonde. He loves surfing and he's got blue eyes. And I went, there you go then.
Oh, wow.
That was the most typical question. These days,
on that one, Anthony, were you joking with her because you were just fed up with her asking this question, or was it for real?
Well, it came into my head, so it wasn't, I didn't actually hear it as a verbal. I heard it and I just said it. I thought, oh, for goodness sake. But it must have come from the spirit, because it went into my head, and it was then obviously true. Nowadays, though, the question is changed. The question nowadays is about jobs, careers, life in general, especially over the last year with COVID-19. It's all about, because we've stopped, we've stopped, and people have taken time back to look at their lives, and so they're questioning things. And this is where I think, when we do forecast, I don't like saying predict, I don't know why, but forecast the future, it gives somebody a hope. It gives something for somebody to hold on to. And timelines can change. So I don't necessarily give, or you're going to meet somebody in 2 months' time, or you're going to change your job in a year. I just give them and then say, be patient.
So just to clarify on that point, I say we get different answers from different people claiming different powers. But so are you saying that our life is predetermined, and what's happening is the spirit world is saying, okay, I can let you into a secret. This is what's going to happen to you tomorrow. You're going to meet this Australian who's blonde hair, blue eyes in 9 months' time, and that's what's going to happen? Or are you saying that there are variables and it may or may not happen?
I think now, on my journey, and what I've learned, at the beginning, I thought that the first thing you said, I thought yes, but now there are variables. There are various timelines, and it can change to what's going on, because we can sort out what's going on in ourselves, and that's the micro, but what's going on in the macro, which is out there, affects us. So this last year and now, whatever's going on out there is affecting us in the micro.
Did you foresee, I asked somebody else this question, did you foresee what happened in 2020?
Well, yes, but not COVID. So last January, on the 14th of January last year, I was given a message and it said, we're going to stop the world. And I said, what do you mean you're going to stop the world? The world needs to stop. It needs to cleanse. And that's the only message I had. I questioned, obviously, what, but they didn't tell me. I didn't get the it's going to be a virus. I didn't get that.
Can I add something here?
Yeah.
Because I can vouch for this with what Anthony's saying, because he put something that was so sort of stark on Facebook at the time, and it was so out there that even I know I don't doubt Anthony, I never doubt Anthony, but even I looked at it and I thought, crikey, I mean, this guy doesn't even drink, or not much if he does. I mean, what is he on? What is he saying? Because basically he was saying the world's going to stop. It's just, everything's going to stop. And I remember thinking, and it was very dark, that what Anthony had written. And I just thought, gosh, what on earth is going on? I can now see your countdown, actually, which I couldn't see before. This is good, isn't it? I do love these Zoom things. Anyway, but what was remarkable was that Anthony put it out there, and no doubt a few people probably went, what rubbish is this?
This year's been amazing, because back in January, they've given me so many things, apart from we're going to shut the world down, but they didn't say me how. That came a little later, obviously, to everybody's knowledge, but they gave me a lot of other things that are playing out right now, and we're going to see the results of we're not going to see, we're going to experience what they were saying last year, some of the things. What I do is I get the message, and then I ask whether I should tell anybody. Right. And they'll either say,
on that one then, because really really good, because we're going to get you back many times, which is what I love.
Thank you.
Give us some specifics about what's going to happen next, because that's what everybody's really worried. What on earth is going to happen next? And then we can get you back and have a look at that sort of stuff. What have you been told about the next stages?
Okay, so there's a lot. So I'll just pick on one thing that people can look forward to. So at the moment, we're a lot of people are frightened, they're in fear, they're panicking, they're worried, and it's all to do with COVID-19, and that's fine. Well, it's not fine, but that's what's happening. What we got to look forward to is April 1st, something amazing is going to happen. But by the end of April into May, there's going to be a change in the world financial system. So everybody is going to know by the end of May. At the moment, this is the timeline at the moment. Now, if things change, it may get pushed into June or July, but May, through April to May, we're going to experience financially a massive reset, a massive change in the way we work with money, spend money, deal with money, whatever it is around money, we're going to experience that. And that's what's going to help people, because we know that there's been a lot of companies going under. I can predict the companies going under next year or this year. So, and next year, because they've already given me the companies that are going under. I knew Debenhams were going to go under back in March. So it's happening, and Topshop. And remember, I came from the retail background. So all these companies I'm very connected with that industry. I worked for Topshop for a year, so I know. But back in March last year, they told me that don't be surprised if the high street starts to fold. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, Debenhams will go, Topshop will go, Miss Selfridge will go. And by the end of last year, what was announced on TV. So don't be afraid if you're part of that group and you've lost your job and you're panicking about the future. There's something amazing coming in, and they told me it was a reset of finances. So don't panic about money. If we are sorted and we are looked after from the point of view that we don't have to worry too much, then we can sort the rest. There are so many wonderful things coming that I've seen, that have been shown.
So just give us a very specific one, then we'll get you back for next time. One very specific one, which is going to happen. Let's do it because we'll get you back within the next week. And I know timeframes vary and everything else. What can we look forward to this coming week?
This coming week? There's going to be some massive announcement about ex-President Trump and the situation in America right now. So in the next week, we're going to have some news
about the impeachment.
Some tiny news coming. It's not going to be massive, but it's going to be there on the mainstream media if we look for it.
Trump's dominated the headlines. I'm sure Trump, if you have to look for Trump, it's not a news story. He's there every day.
I don't mean the negative about Trump. There's something positive about Trump.
Do you think, is it going to come out that he won the election after all? Is that going to come out?
Do you want to know my view?
Yes.
The view? He did win.
He did win.
He did win. So I know he won because they told me he won. They told me he was going to win back in March. So when he didn't win, I went, really? You told me he was going to win. What? Huh? And I had about 10 minutes of doubt going, he tricked me there. And then I get the reassurance that, haha, just hold on, because we're not seeing the truth. We're not seeing the whole picture.
So is it going to come out? Is it going to?
Yeah.
Is the election going to be reversed? Is it Joe Biden? And I love the anagram that be joined. That's Joe Biden. Is that unity? Is that unity not going to happen? You say it's not over yet. Is that what you're saying?
It's not over yet. It's not over yet by a long shot. So we just have to hold on, and we have to wait. But it's not. But in the next week, that was your question. In the next week, something is going to start to come out to reassure people that, you know, it's okay, it's all right. This has happened, but this is okay. And it's to do with Trump and the election.
But what sort of thing? Just very briefly on our last minute.
It's going to be that he did win the election. That's going
to be so divisive because all the supporters.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It's going to shock people. I was told that some things that are going to come out over 2021 are going to shock people to the core. Okay. Now, they're going to have to be pretty big to shock people to the core. So I never take too much interest in what other people say out there. I go back to, if I hear something, I'll go back to what's called source, which is you, your soul energy. And I connect and I go, is that true or is that false? And I always believe the answer back because I know now in myself, I'm not bigging myself up, but I know that what I feel in here, which is the heart chakra, which is the heart energy, is true. So if you connect your heart with your intuition, and we all have it, the third eye, which is here, which is the all-seeing eye. If you connect all your chakras together and you tune in, you get the right answer.
Okay, well, all your chakras, it's all there. Well, we will get you back. I say it doesn't sound like a small announcement to me. It's a fairly big announcement. If you're saying he won the election, there's going to be a revelation this week. I don't think you're going to have to look too far to see that being reported. But for now, Anthony Churchill, we'll get you back. Thank you very much for joining me.
Okay, thank you.
That's the door.
Thank you very much indeed.
Bye-bye.
Take care. See you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
So there you go. By any stretch of the imagination, that is not a small announcement. But anyway, time will tell. Next week from today's date, there will be some announcement in the press somewhere about the election. Getting column inches for Trump is not really much of a prediction. Turning around and saying there's a new announcement and that he actually won. Bit dangerous really, but he should be rather careful. Everybody has thought they've moved on to the next stage, but maybe there's another chapter to be done. Anyway, if you'd like to be a guest, write to me at the Andrew Eborn Show here at guests@Octopus TV. Don't forget to follow on the usual platforms, on Twitter at Andrew Eborn @Octopus TV, and also on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, and you will be the first to know when the next videos are released. Until then, be good. See you next time. Bye-bye.